Hi, welcome back. It's Steph here with another episode of my podcast just for today. I don't know where I am in my cycle because everything's a little bit skew-whiff in my life right now. But I feel like I'm about 6 to 5 days out from my monthly cycle. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I'm a little bit ragey today. So the episode that I wanted to record today is quite apt for the mood that I'm in, because I want to call this episode, let's stop blaming our hormones for our moods, for our feelings. That's the word. Let's stop blaming our hormones for our feelings. Now, when I first went on the HRT journey, I did it because I was starting to really notice the PMT rage, shall we call it. It wasn't really a rage, it was a noise. It was a PMT noise. It was something that was going on in my head, and it was just really noisy. Should you have done that? Should you have said that? Oh my God, you're going to do this. Oh my, all of the inner protector sound. And I love my inner protector. Like, I'm very grateful for her being in my life. Because she's just as valid as every other part of me. But in that week before my period is due, I started to notice that her voice was getting quite loud and quite domineering. Still didn't dislike her, but I wanted to understand what was going on. Now, after talking to different people and working with Marie of NutriCore, a nutritional therapist, I started to really understand what was happening with my hormones. And for me, as a woman in her late 40s, this perimenopausal phase, what might be going on for me. But I will never ever blame my hormones for my reactions or how I feel. Because whilst the feelings may be more intense and exaggerated or supersized, I like to call them, I think that what I'm feeling I would have felt before. It's just a little bit more larger than life, shall we say. So if we have an insecurity, let's just say we have a fear of rejection, and I use that one often, but it's something that the majority of my clients are working with, and me too, right? No one wants to feel rejection. And if we've had a rejection wound created earlier on in our lifetime, of course it's going to show up in our adulthood until we start working with it. So I very actively work around my fear of rejection. And again, fear of rejection isn't necessarily because somebody left you and is still living on this planet. It could be because somebody passed away, somebody died. So I actively work with my fear of rejection. And in that week before, when my hormones are starting to change and my body's getting ready to release, because let's not forget, what our body is actually doing in that period before we actually bleed is getting ready to let go. It's getting ready to release an egg that has not been fertilized. And the body goes through a process in order to be able to do that. And from an emotional perspective, it's why we start to feel quite emotionally charged, or our emotions become supersized, because we are letting go. We are releasing something from our body. And the female body is so powerful that we feel all of these things in a very I'm trying to think of the word. I know how it feels for me, but these emotions, the more we lean into our feelings and the more we lean into allowing ourselves to feel, the more acute we become aware of the tiny little shifts, the tiny little changes that occur in us as females. And I think that's a really incredible thing to tune in. I'm moving my fingers now like I'm tuning in a radio, and most of you will understand what I'm doing, but younger people were like, what is she doing? But it is like tuning into the frequency of you. And it is an incredible thing to be able to do. And for so many years, we've just ignored as females. We've been told to ignore. And I'm a bit sick and tired of it. I really am sick and tired of it. I saw on TikTok the other day, and this is what kind of spurred this idea in my head, a sketch or a video or whatever you want to call it, a TikTok of a man. And he was filming it from the perspective of his wife was due on, period was coming, and he was kind of running around the house telling everybody, like almost like a hurricane was coming, lock down the hatches, guys. And I'm going to assume he had sons, boys, you know, it's coming again. We've all got to just hold on for dear life. This type of bullshit. You know, so this narrative is that mum's going to become completely irrational. The woman in your life is going to become crazy. She's just going to become an absolute psychopath. Everyone hold on for dear life. Really, really made me cross. Because this narrative has got to stop. We've got to break this bullshit story that there's something wrong with her if once a month this is going to happen and we all have to just hold on for dear life. I've equally seen really lovely TikToks from men where they've videoed what they do to support their partner at this time and how they nurture her and how they love her with kindness and compassion. And I don't know, some of them bring snacks, some of them bring certain things, they tuck her into bed, all of these things, right? But the overriding noise is that women become psychotic once a month and we just got to ride it out because it's her time of the month. You know, when I was younger, oh, she's on the blob, oh, the decorators are coming, you know, all of this bullshit. It really does infuriate me. But as women, we've almost taken ownership of that and we've almost dismissed our feelings because it's like, oh, well, you know, well, my period was coming, that'll be why. Well, no, that might be why you felt more sensitive, more, like your emotions were supersized. They were a lot more intense during that time, but it doesn't mean that that wasn't a feeling that was meant to be felt. It isn't just, oh, it was that time of the month and then the next month the next week we're all good and we just ignore that. Ladies, what I want you to do is to start really noticing what's showing up, because it will show up other times of the month, but it just won't feel as intense. And then when we don't allow ourselves to feel at those times, and when we do move into that phase of letting go, getting ready, our body and our mind are getting ready to let go, the feelings are a lot more enlarged. They're a lot more intense for us. And I just get really frustrated with this narrative that women, because I'm super sensitive to it now as well, because of this phase that I'm moving into. And I'm also super aware that there are generations of women that were deemed as psychotic and that there was something wrong with them. You know, and for me, the perimenopausal phase has been a really intense ride so far at times. But just because in that week before my period was due, I was frustrated that all of the kids left their shoes in the middle of a floor and didn't pick their coat up and didn't do that. I would still be pissed off about that 2 weeks before that, but I might not be so enraged by it. And it's just as valid for me. I might not convey myself as articulate myself as effectively, but it doesn't mean, oh, mum's just raging because of a, no, that's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. As women, we need to, in my opinion, really now dig into connecting with ourselves. Why in that week, what showed up and why did it feel so intense? And when we move into the spring phase of our cycle, which is as we come out of the bleed, which is the winter months, how can we then start to work with those feelings that we were experiencing a week or 10 days ago? How can we start to acknowledge those thoughts and those feelings when we're in our spring phase? Because spring and summer, which is, you know, post-bleed ovulation time, we do have more energy. We do feel more kind of light in our minds and our bodies because of what's happening in our bodies. So that is the time to start thinking about, why was that so intense for me? And actually, what was that pissing me off for? Why were the shoes on the floor, the coats on the chair, the dishes not being put in the dishwasher? Why did that feel so intense that week before? Let's dig into that, because it's never about the shoes on the floor. It's never about that. It's maybe, just maybe, about the fact that you don't feel appreciated, you don't feel valued, you don't feel seen. And then we lean into those emotions. I've spoken on the podcast before about trigger stacking, but I'm going to refresh your memory here. Trigger stacking is where one thing after another, if you imagine a block of bricks that you would have seen, if you have children, you would have seen children, or you would have seen a child building blocks. Jenga, right? You're building blocks, and then they get so high that they tip over, and I call that the tipping point. And usually the tipping point is the pants that are left on the floor, the coffee cup that hasn't been taken downstairs. My sons were away last week for 6 days playing golf, and me and my husband were laughing at how many glasses we had in the cupboard whilst they weren't here, like a full cupboard of glasses. And generally it doesn't piss me off that they each have 3 or 4 glasses in their bedroom. But there will be times when I'm like, oh my God, why can't they just bring their glasses down? And again, it could be that time where I'm just thinking, actually, I don't feel completely appreciated in this house for everything I do. And how can I communicate with them more effectively that actually it means a lot to me to do this or do that, or say thank you or show appreciation? And that's quite a trivial thing, but getting back to trigger stacking and the tipping point, if we ignore our feelings and we ignore the noise that's going on in our head that's saying, I don't know, if we're talking about fear of rejection again, I'm trying to think of an example here. I don't know, he doesn't love me, he's going to leave, he doesn't value me, all of those things, but we just shut it down because we're saying, don't be so ridiculous, don't be so ridiculous, don't be so ridiculous. At some point, that block, another one's going to go on top and another one's going to go on top, and eventually we will topple and we will tip. And we will blow up at the smallest of things because we've trigger stacked. We've just ignored. And as women, we're really good at this, aren't we? Just ignoring. And potentially those times of the month where we are experiencing intense shifts in our body, we may blow. And then it looks to the outside world like, well, where did that come from? I don't understand that. Oh, it must be because she's due her period. And this is the cycle. And what I want to do is to start really helping women to really connect with what they're feeling and start working with those feelings, because feelings are beautiful messages for us to take action, to do something. Anxiety, a feeling, anxious feelings. It's our body kicking us in and saying, I need you to do something. I need you to get away. I need you to move away from what you're doing. Rational or not in the conscious mind, that's irrelevant. So just for today, ladies, what I would love you to do is, first of all, start to notice if that noise goes around in your head and you are blaming your hormones for your behaviour, your feelings, your reactions, or anything that fits into that category. And then what I want you to do is track it back and start to think about, but why? What happened? What made me feel the way I do? What kind of was kicking off for me that made me feel? And maybe put it in a place where you can pick it up in 5 to 10 days after, when you feel that pressure release. Because I don't know about you, when I get my period, I almost feel like that smoke kind of releasing, that pressure just decreasing, and the air coming out like a balloon when you let the air out. It feels like that for me. Then I move into a much more kind of subjective, rational place where I can start to work with what was showing up for me and why was it showing up and did it feel so intense for me at that time. So just for today, I want you to absolutely start to connect with your feelings every day of the month and start thinking about, why am I feeling this today? What is happening? What is associated with this feeling? And track it back a little bit. Because, if you're kicking off about pants being left on the floor, it could be that you've suppressed a feeling of not being appreciated, not being seen, not being heard in your home, that needs to be communicated in a way that would be effective for you and in a way that would be safe for you to do so as well. So I would love for you to start digging into this again. That saying is, we can only heal what we allow ourselves to feel. And I think that's such an important thing to consider for yourself. Until next time.